the letter is the secret meeting that changed rap music and destroyed a generation.
Damn.
So it says, hello. After more than 20 years, I finally decided to tell the world what I witnessed in 1991, which I believe was one of the biggest turning points in popular music and ultimately American society. I have struggled for a long time weighing the pros and cons of making my story public, as I was reluctant to implicate the individuals who were present that day. So I've simply decided to leave out the names and all the details that may risk my personal well-being and that of those who were, like me, dragged into something they weren't ready for.
Damn.
Hold on, let me
So we gonna tell the story.
We gonna tell the story. We ain't scared.
You know what I'm saying? What they gonna do?
They after us, not just playing.
Look, that black van.
So look. So he says, between the late 80s and early 90s, I was what you may call a decision maker with one of the more established companies in the music industry. I came to Europe in the early 80s and quickly established myself in the business. The industry was different back then, since technology and media weren't accessible to people like that, like they are today. The industry had more control over the public and had the means to influence them any way it wanted.
Right.
This may explain why in early 1991, I was invited to attend a closed-door meeting with a small group of business insiders to discuss rap music's new direction. Rap music's new direction.
Yeah.
Little did I know we would be asked to participate in one of the most unethical and destructive business practices ever seen.
Shalom, like you follow undergirding praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Wakakodash. Like your double honors to our apostles and elders of great millstones. Salutations to all your sincere brothers pushing this word out across the four corners of the earth. This lesson is entitled The Secret Meeting That Changed Hip Hop. And you're going to see a rap artist by the name of Crazy Bone, which was a part of a hip hop legendary group by the name of Bone Thugs and Harmony. And he's going to read a letter from an individual who's a part of the music industry business. And he had a meeting along with other colleagues of his caliber. And they had a meeting with these different Edomites that's high ranking in the music industry business and how they want to partake into a certain business venture. And you're going to see just the ways of Esau, who are these biblical Edomites. And you're just going to see the tactics and all the different snares and traps they love to set up for our people, which are you so-called Negroes, Latinos, Hispanics, Native Americans, who are the biblical Israelites, the so-called minorities. And I'm going to stop the video from time to time and bring out precepts through the spirit. And Lord willing, this whole lesson be edifying to you all. Shalom.
Crazy.
So this was the meeting. The meeting was held at a private residence on the outskirts of Los Angeles. I remember about 25 to 30 people were being there.
Right.
Most of them familiar faces. Speaking of those I knew, we joked about the theme of the meeting, as many of us did not care for rap and failed to see the purpose of being invited to a private meeting to discuss the future of hip-hop.
Talk to him.
Among the attendees was a small group of unfamiliar faces who stayed to themselves and made no attempt to socialize beyond their circle. Based on their behavior and formal appearances, they didn't seem to be from our industry. Our casual chatter was interrupted when we were asked to sign the confidentiality agreement, preventing us from publicly discussing the information presented during the meeting. Needless to say, this intrigued, in some cases, disturbed many of us. The agreement was only a page long, but very clear on matters and consequences, which stated that violating the terms would result in job termination immediately.
And that's a part of our law by not making a covenant or agreement or contract with these other nations, the natural Gentiles. And this is Exodus, the 23rd chapter and the 32nd verse. Thou shalt make no covenant with them nor with their gods. It's a reason why the Most High Yahweh wanted this law to be put in here for us to be able to follow and keep mind of. That leads me to 1 Maccabees, the 1st chapter and the 10th verse. And there came out of them a wicked root, Antiochus, surnamed Epiphanes, son of Antiochus the king, who had been a hostage at Rome. And he reigned in 137 year of the kingdom of the Greeks. So this was a time frame when the nation of Israel were under the Greek captivity by the name of this devil, Antiochus Epiphanes IV. Verse 11, in those days went there out of Israel wicked men who persuaded many, saying, let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us. For since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow. So you had a lot of wicked ones of our people want to make a covenant with the Greeks. At this time point right here, those Greeks were Edomites, the so-called Caucasian race. Further down the line, we in American captivity, known as Babylon the Great. You still have a lot of our people that's part of this music industry still want to make a covenant with the heathen. So this is nothing but a strategic plan by the higher ups, the ones that really run the society, the so-called Illuminati, the international bankers, how they sell this music industry, and they know how they can get our people with this music. So by making contracts and agreements with this devil, Esau knows that will keep us further away from our power source, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. And Esau knows if that further keeps us away from our power source, then the longer they can stay in their rulership. Everything is all planned and devised to keep the nation of Israel from reaching that true connection with their power source, which is Yahweh Yahushai. So that's why we do not supposed to follow the ordinances or the traditions of these other nations, because it would keep us further astray from Yahweh Yahushai. So that's exactly why we do not supposed to make a covenant with them or their gods.
He asked several people what this meeting was about and the reason for such secrecy, but could not find anyone who had the answers for us. A few people refused to sign and walked out. Nobody stopped them. I was tempted to follow, but curiosity got the best of me.
That's right.
A man who was part of the unfamiliar group collected all the agreements from us. So now it's going to get to the good part because the meeting about to start.
Talk to him, G.
It says, quickly after the meeting began, hold on one second.
Get your popcorn, y'all.
Popcorn, get your pistol. No,
for real though.
Quickly after this meeting began, one of the industry colleagues, who shall remain nameless like everybody else, thanked us for attending. He then gave the floor to a man who only introduced himself by first name and gave no other details about his personal background. I think he was the owner of the residence, but that was never confirmed. He briefly praised all of us for the success we had achieved in our industries and congratulated us for being selected as part of this small group of decision makers. At this point, I began to feel slightly uncomfortable and the strangeness of this gathering. The subject quickly changed as the speaker went on to tell us that the respective companies we represented had invested in a very profitable industry, which could become even more rewarding with our active involvement.
Damn.
He explained that the companies we worked for had invested millions into the building of privately owned prisons, and that our positions of influence in the music industry would actually impact the profitability of these investments. Then he says, I remember many of us in the group immediately looking at each other in awe and confusion. At the same time, I didn't know what a private prison was, but I wasn't the only one. Sure enough, someone asked what these prisons were and what any of this had to do with music. We were told that these prisons were built by privately owned companies who received funding from the government based on the number of inmates. The more inmates, the more the government would pay these prisons. It was also made clear to us that since these prisons are privately owned, as they become publicly traded, we'd be able to buy shares. Most of us were taken back by this. Again, a couple of people asked what this had to do with us. At this point, my industry colleague who had first opened the meeting took the floor again and answered our questions. He told us that since our employees had become silent investors in this prison business, it was now in their interest to make sure that these prisons remain filled. Our job would be to help make this happen by making music which promote criminal behavior, rap being the music of choice. He assured us that this would be a great situation for us because rap music was becoming an increasingly profitable market for our companies, And as employees, we also be able to buy stocks in these prisons.
So as you can see, these group of Jakes are in this room or meeting with these high-ranking Edomites within the music industry. So Esau is coming at them with their different schemes, plots, and tactics, and letting Jake know that they have a huge following. They see how successful they are becoming, with a lot of people gravitating onto their music. So anytime Esau sees a Jake, or just anyone in particular, but more so as a Jake with a big following, Esau sees that as a profit or some type of benefit or advantage to even further their new world order. So what do you have with this genre of music called rap or hip hop? Then you have the sub-genres under that, which is called trap music, gangster rap, and drill music. And all of this is systematically designed by the higher ups within the Edomites to push that vibration out upon our people and to further keep you separated from Yahweh Shai, because all that music is destructive to the spirit. And Esau knows it because, as it said, that he's wiser than Daniel. So Esau studies the scriptures. He knows how music can put a different spirit upon a person. It can alter your mood, and he knows about the subconscious. So putting out this type of destructive music amongst our people, that's going to keep our people in that lawless type of mindset, not govern themselves by the ways of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua, and keep us in that negative vibration that we further continue from our heritage. Esau is a very big part of that movement. And this is Habakkuk, the 2nd chapter and the 15th verse. Woe unto him that giveth his neighbor drink. So woe means death or destruction to that particular individual. And this is talking about the Edomites. That neighbor he's giving that Babylonian drink to are the Israelites. That puttest thy bottle to him, and makest him drunken also, that thou mayest look on their nakedness. That drink is referencing that Babylonian drink, that confusion. Anything that's outside the ways of Yahweh Yahushua with true understanding, that's that Babylonian drink. That puttest thy bottle to him and makest him drunken also. So that's talking about spiritually drunk. So by being away of spiritually drunken, you adhering to the ways of Esau's philosophies, his dogma, his religions, his flattery and enticing speeches, ultimately his witchcraft, because that's all it is at the end of the day. So he's making 2/3 of the nation of Israel drunken also, that thou mayest look on their nakedness. Because what he'll set up all these different tactics and plots amongst our people, and knowing that separate us from our Heavenly Father and Yahweh Shai, then point the finger at us to the Most High and be like, look at your people, what they're doing down here. They're continually disobeying you. They're continually disrespecting you on all types of levels and aspects. So that's the way that thou mayest look on their nakedness. Because as it says in the book of Isaiah, the 52nd chapter, in the 1st verse, awake, awake, O Zion, put on thy beautiful garments. So we're not naked when we come to the true understanding of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua. And Esau knows it. That's why Esau does his COINTELPRO with anything that's positive, especially he see with this Hebrew Israelite movement. So of course Esau has his different snares and traps and his agents along with it, because these higher ups of the Edomite nation, they see a great awakening happening amongst our people. Ezekiel the 37th chapter is playing out live right now. So anytime Esau sees something that's positive, that's in a positive vibration of light, he's going to come up with some type of strategic plan or tactic to deviate that light. But he cannot do that with this because it's spiritual. And at the end of the day, it's biblical prophecy fulfilling itself. So as it says that thou mayest look on their nakedness. If you read Jeremiah, the 6th chapter and the 2nd verse, the Most High looks at the nation of Israel as a comely and delicate woman. So if you read the book of Ezekiel, the 16th chapter, the Most High is bragging about how he look at us as a beautiful woman. He decked us out and fashioned us with the beautiful garments, the ornaments, all the pretty jewelry. But once we separated from him and started following the ways of these heathen nations and their gods, we became ugly. He stripped away all those beautiful garments and ornaments that he fashioned for us. So therefore we became naked, meaning spiritually naked out here. He hid his face from us.
Immediately, silence came over the room. You could have heard a pin drop. I remember looking around to make sure I wasn't dreaming and saw half of the people with dropped jaws. My daze was interrupted when someone shouted, "Is this a fucking joke?" At this point, things became chaotic.
Right.
Two of the men who were part of the unfamiliar group grabbed the man who shouted and attempted to remove him from the house. A few of us, myself included, tried to intervene. One of them pulled out a gun. We all backed off. They separated us from the crowd, and all four of us was escorted outside. My industry colleague, who opened up the meeting earlier, hurried out to meet us and reminded us that we had signed an agreement and would suffer the consequences of speaking out about this publicly, or even those who attended the meeting.
Damn.
I asked him why was he involved with something so corrupt, and he replied, "It's bigger than the music business and nothing we'd want to challenge without risking consequences." We all protested as we walked back into the house. I remember word for word the last thing he said. "It's out of my hands now. Just remember you signed an agreement." He then closed the door behind him. The men rushed us to our car and actually waited until we drove off the property.
Damn.
So this meeting, bro.
Now that's a lot for a meeting right there.
Oh yeah, definitely. And this person later on, he said, this person actually ended up leaving the music industry after this happened. A few years after this, he ended up leaving the music industry.
Okay.
And he'd say he just over the years he just felt guilty, because he said as he sat back and he watched these plans come to a reality
Over 2 decades.
he sat back and was like, wow, they really pulled it off.
Yeah.
They really pulled this off. He was like, they were told not to sign any more political rappers, any more rappers that had messages in their
No
music.
positivity.
It was all to be gangster rap music that they promoted and put out.
So if you wonder where
And this
Brand
was
Nubians
before
went,
us.
if you wonder where Brand Nubians went, where Pro Righteous Teachers went, where Public Enemy went, where KRS-One went, and all sorts of groups like that was talking,
Yeah.
even Queen Latifah and Moni Love and those, what I'm saying?
Everybody.
It's a back door.
Yeah, anything that was harmless, fun rap, anything that had a message in it had to go.
This is the book of Psalm, the 83rd chapter, and the 2nd verse. For lo, thy enemies make a tumult, meaning a noise, a commotion, ultimately war. That's why these higher ups of these different nations start with the nation of Edom. They have their different United Nations meetings, their different Bilderberg group meetings. All this is a part of their tactic to overthrow the nation of Israel, which are you so-called Negroes, Latinos, Hispanics, and Native Americans today, the so-called minorities. That's why Esau is so headstrong fulfilling that Agenda 21. That's a part of the New World Order. And they that hate thee have lifted up their head. Verse 3, they have taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thy hidden ones. Verse 4, they have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. Verse 5, for they have consulted together with one consent, they are confederate against thee. So starting with the tabernacles of Edom, beginning with Amalek, which are the fake Jews that's in our land right now, which control this music industry business, they're a part of that agenda to overthrow us as a nation. To further prove that, this is Zephaniah, the 2nd chapter, and the 1st verse. Gather yourselves together, yea, gather together, O nation not desired. And the only time that we will be desired to these other nations is by us being some type of entertainment or opportunity of a profit or advancement to these other nations, or by us painting ourselves in a negative vibration type of light, meaning that we're lawless out here. But as a hopeful elect coming back and putting on those beautiful garments, we're not going to be desired to these other nations, because that's not going to profit them. Because as much as that great awakening is happening amongst our people, coming back to who we really are, coming back to our power source, coming back to who our true biblical enemies are, Esau sees that, and he knows that he has but a short time to rule, and these other nations as well.
Now, after reading all this, it actually made me feel a few different ways. The first emotion I felt was shocked, because I was definitely taken back by this, just knowing the level of evil that's involved by even thinking of a plan like this. You know what I'm saying? The second emotion I felt was anger. Anger because it's not enough for them to exploit our culture and make all the money off of it. Mm-hmm. Because let's keep it real, the industry has never been favorable towards the artists. Never. But they're going to go beyond the artists to get the artist to influence and lure in the consumer which they knew at the time were mainly minorities.
Yep.
In other words, keep promoting gangster rap so that the youngsters will be influenced by them, which in turn will incite them to want to act like them, and it's a very good chance they'll end up in their prison.
Yeah.
So they're getting paid twice. They're getting paid from the artists they signing, and then they're getting paid from the people that these artists influence that goes to prison trying to be like these artists.
Yeah.
So they making a killing.
A killing.
They're using the music business to promote their private prison business.
And this is Proverbs, the 12th chapter and the 26th verse. The righteous is more excellent than his neighbor, but the way of the wicked seduceth them. So the way of Esau's flattery, enticing words and speeches has made 2/3 of the nation of Israel spiritually drunk. They drink that Babylonian wine. As it says that his words are smoother than butter. So 2/3 of our people had engulfed all that wine and has become spiritually intoxicated. So by signing Esau's contracts and agreements, when you make into that music industry, he seduced you, meaning that he misled you. He sold you a false dream thinking that you can be able to accomplish here in America and live happily ever after. But not knowing that's that same serpent mentioned right back in the book of Psalm, the 58th chapter, that death adder that's going to bite you right back with his poison. It's going to kill you because 2/3 of our people have made that covenant with death, especially the ones of our people that caught up into this music industry. He made that covenant with death.
My man is right there talking that right. 1988, a man named Tom Beasley, man. That's the co-founder of the corrections for Corporation of America. That's the CCA. You know what I'm saying? Excuse my French. I'm reading this thing right there real quick. It's the CCA. So in 1988, he founded that, and this is in straight concert with the same thing. So it's like the music business. You do what you do on your side. And over here with the correction facilities, we're going to do on this side because, and now in 1970, there was 500 prisons. You know what I'm saying? Only 500 prisons in the United States. To this day, there's 1,700 prisons right now. That means big business. I'm talking about that done flippled over. You know what I'm saying? If flippled over is a word. Because they're making a lot of money off of these things per inmate. You know what I'm saying? So getting with the same thing of the music, it all went hand in hand, and we just partying at the same time.
So us as the artists is the tool they use.
Yeah.
The music is the bait. Yep. And the young consumers are the prey. It's a cold game.
Cold game, bro.
Cold game.
So for the ones of our people that partook into that strategic plan with Esau to continue to make that destructive type of music and go right along with it, you're going to have a price to pay by Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua as well. This is the book of Daniel, the 12th chapter and the 2nd verse. And many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life and some to shame and everlasting contempt. So the ones of our people that died on this side, when they come back as the children of the immortals that make it on this side, they're going to be in that spirit of disgrace and shame because they're going to be like, man, I did that. I misled my people like that. They're going to be really mind-boggled how they trusted in Esau, and they're going to see the state of Esau at that time frame in the kingdom of heaven, and they're going to be mad as hell. But they're going to be in that shame and everlasting contempt only for a certain period of time. It's not going to be forever.
Then I felt sad. Sad because everything we seem to try to create, we always seem to give it away. We're always being tricked and deceived into believing that they have our best interests at hand when clearly they never have and they never will.